Treasurer Dale Falwell. Welcome all of you to the 81st edition of Ask Me Anything. Thank you for making the choice to join us today. We have lots of topics to go over, but during these Ask Me Anything calls, we're trying to stress the importance of transparency in government, which includes retention of public records as well as having a connection with the media who can ask me questions on lots of things that are going on around the treasurer's office. As a recipient, our office as a recipient of the Open Government Coalition Sunshine Award a year or so ago, we have made public records compliance a hallmark of our office during my 2 terms. We're going to address things that are going on in the financial markets, as well as the rising cost of healthcare and some of the other topics that are going on. So with that, we'll open it up for questions.
Mr. Treasurer?
Hey, Paul, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Got a couple of questions regarding Elizabeth City. I guess the city's 2021-22 audit is still in the hands of the outside auditor, and it appears there still to be some work to be done on that. That would mean that the October 31st deadline for submitting the 2022-23 audit will not be met, which could mean another late audit for the city. How will that impact the LGC's view of the city's financial situation?
Well, Paul, as I've said in the past, the situation with Elizabeth City is like an onion. The more we peel it, the more we cry. I'm very concerned with Elizabeth City, especially not only related to the audits, but the actual reconciliation of the books. I mean, for a city that size, that has such a regional importance to the state of North Carolina, there needs to be a renewed focus on figuring out what's right, getting it right, and keeping it right in terms of finances. It's hard to really spend money that you don't know whether you have it or not. So it's deeply concerning, especially just a few months ago when at one city council meeting, people were spiking the ball as if they had gotten all this information to the LGC, and I just don't think that's completely accurate.
I've got one more follow-up question. As you know, it's election day here in Elizabeth City, and almost everyone I've talked to expects the mayor to be reelected and at least 7 of the 8 current councilors. If that happens, does the LGC have confidence that the current leadership, if they're reelected, can correct the city's financial problems?
Well, there's 3 parts of the LGC. There's the LGC staff, there's the board of the LGC, and then as the state treasurer and the chair of the board, I remain deeply concerned about Elizabeth City. And I will also add to that depending on how the elections go, it's very important that anybody who's returning to city government in Elizabeth City does not need to have a renewal of their vows in terms of their public service. They need to have a resetting of their relationship. It is past time for Elizabeth City to be completely focused on transparency, competency, good government, and to make sure that all potential, actual, or the appearance of conflicts of interest are removed from the taxpayers' coffers.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Paul. Next. James. Jason.
Hey, Treasurer, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. Hope you are. Maybe just address, I know one of the things that you had said you might talk about is the new law passed by the General Assembly that more or less exempts them from the public records law. As you said in your opening, this is something that y'all take seriously and have tried to abide by. I wonder if maybe you just react to that new law or policy or regulation or however I should call it.
I'll be glad to, and if you'll allow me, Jason, I'll just read a little paragraph that I wrote out yesterday.
Yeah, go for it. That'd be good.
While I may not be an expert on public records law, I agree with former North Carolina Governor Jim Martin, who continues saying, doing right is rarely wrong. As state treasurer, keeper of the public purse, and the recipient of the Open Government's Coalition Sunshine Award, I feel strongly that restricting public access to important public information reduces confidence in all levels of government, which is already at historical lows. It matters because in so many ways our society is at a crossroads, trying to decide whether to unite or divide. Answering the whys and hows that legislation is written is becoming even more important than ever. By allowing individual lawmakers to determine what records are public and what material can be destroyed without ever seeing the sunshine of public view, creates a system that does not have standards or accountability. It prevents the public from learning who and what influenced certain decision making on their behalf. And as the state treasurer of North Carolina and keeper of the public purse, I don't need law to tell me what's right and what's wrong. That's true today, yesterday, today, and it'll be true tomorrow. We'll continue to have a culture at the treasurer's office of conservatism, common sense, courtesy, and open communications as the keepers of the public purse.
Thanks for that. I don't suppose there's really anything that the treasurer's office can do to affect that new policy, is there? I mean, you have your opinions, and certainly that those are both, from you personally and as a treasurer. But in terms of anything official, I don't suppose there's anything y'all can do, is there?
No, I mean, as I've said on this call 80 times before, I don't pick and choose which laws to apply or who to apply them to. I have great respect for the Constitution of North Carolina, as well as the power invested in the General Assembly to make the laws that ultimately become ratified. So we have no say in terms of this particular law, other than the fact that there's always an opportunity. Sunshine's a good thing, and the more sunshine that you can put on any situation, especially when the citizens are so confused about why something may be happening to them, I think more sunshine increases confidence at every level of government, whether it's Elizabeth City or the state of North Carolina.
Appreciate it. That's it from me.
Thank you. Next. Dan?
Hey, Treasurer Falwell, thanks for taking my question. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Good. Okay. I mean, you're a former lawmaker. Have you talked with any of your former colleagues about, why that happened with the public records changes with the legislature? And then, I mean, is there a way that you having been a lawmaker, is there a way for the lawmakers to undo this before the end of this session? And should they do that?
Dan, as you know, my first 6 years in the General Assembly was in the minority party, and my last 2 years in the majority party. And I have always been a fan of taking advantage of the talents that God gave us, which is the vision to see what needs to be seen, and the humility to hear what needs to be heard, and the courage to act on what needs to be done. I think that as members of the General Assembly actually look at how this jumped up on the table and for what problem is it actually trying to solve, there's always an opportunity at really a snap of a finger for them to undo this. But that obviously will be their decision.
I'd just like to follow up. You're running for governor. Is there anything in your platform that might serve to expand, public records, public access? And if so, could you talk about that?
It's kind of awkward to answer your question in a state building using state assets, but I think if you'll give me a little bit of latitude, I will answer the question. I think ethics is what you do when no one's watching. I've been the best treasurer money can't buy. I intend to be the best governor money can't buy. I have tried to be the most transparent treasurer in the history of North Carolina, and I will take that culture to the governorship. And I would add to that, as I said earlier, I don't need a law to tell me what's right and what's wrong. And as I said earlier, when Governor Martin said doing right's rarely wrong, in my position, this position, or as the next governor of North Carolina, I don't mind being wrong for the right reasons. That's a little bit of a twist on words, but if somebody brings me new information or a better way of looking at old information that leads me to conclude that what I thought before was incorrect, I don't mind being wrong for the right reasons. And I think that that possibly what I just said could apply to the earlier part of your question about the General Assembly reversing this.
Thanks, Treasurer Falwell.
Thank you. Next. WRAL, anybody have a question or a follow-up question?
I think we're covered. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Just want to also add one more thing. We said in the press release, we're going to address how North Carolina is situated financially to weather the upheaval of current events. Oil prices are rising, stocks are falling in the wake of Hamas, Hezbollah, Israeli war, Israel war. Our prayers go out for that community. This is as the state treasurer of North Carolina, the credit rating of North Carolina is higher than the United States of America. As in the last few months, our country is being downgraded. That is the result of the federal government's incompetency and their inability to govern. Those were the reasons given. And this has put trillions of dollars of debt under pressure. And it's also causing even more inflation with our economy as it hits everyday folks in North Carolina with rising interest rates on mortgages, cars, credit cards, and other types of consumer products. I'm wearing the lapel pin today that has NC on it. Just as our country is getting downgraded, we are still on course to retire nearly 60% of our state debt. So as the federal government continues to have an appetite for money, our appetite for debt is decreasing. I get calls from other state treasurers asking, how I'm doing this and how I'm doing that in this rising interest rate environment. When I explain to them that we are paying down debt and we're taking our surpluses and investing it in interest rates we haven't seen in the past, that's a pretty enviable position. I will say that if you step back and think about how North Carolina got designated #1 in the country for business outlook and business activity for the second straight year, it just didn't jump up on the table by itself. It's a result of a lot of strategy, a lot of discipline, and a lot of hard work. The pension plan, the earnings of the pension plan are now flat for the calendar year. We were up about 4% heading into about 8 weeks ago. But the pension plan remains one of the strongest, best funded pension plans in the United States. We continue to fight major challenges with rising cost of health care and some work that the NNO just did on weight loss drugs, prescription drugs, especially specialty drugs. So my point of saying all that to you is that even though NC stands for Nothing Compares, we are facing major headwinds. Even in as good a shape as we are, because of Washington DC's inability to balance their budget and live within their means, and to reduce their addiction for debt. So I just wanted to add that as a point of positive, optimism about where we are. But I also want to remind you of something that Warren Buffett has admonished us about 37 years ago. And I'll say this slowly. It's hard to be as smart as your dumbest competitor. When your dumbest competitor is the federal government, which is increasing the price of everything for the state of North Carolina and its citizens, like light bulbs and paper towels and gasoline and mortgages on houses, it's hard to be as smart as the federal government, who continues to do very dumb things. And going back to Dan's question, the next governor of North Carolina is going to have to understand how to protect our citizens, our economy, and our state from Washington, D.C.'s addiction for money. Okay. Any more questions? Okay. In that case, I'd like to thank all of you for joining us today on our 81st version of Ask Me Anything. 82nd? 81st consecutive Ask Me Anything. As always, if you have any follow-ups or any information that you'd like to have from us, feel free to reach out to our comms department. Not today, today's Dan's birthday, so don't reach out to him today. All of you who know Dan, you can call and wish him happy birthday. But thank you for joining us, and we look forward to joining you next month. Thank you for allowing us to put this off a week. The LGC met in Boone at Appalachian State University last week, and I'd like to close our meeting today in honor of all those who have been killed in the attacks over the last few weeks, and also in honor of Ken Peacock, the very excited and passionate leader of Appalachian State University. Dan and some others on this call may remember, as I said yesterday in a press release or a tweet, I may remember being on the floor of the House when they had won their third national championship, and they gave Chancellor Peacock the microphone in the well of the House, and he got very evangelical, talking about them winning the third national championship, and pounded his fist on that podium. I'll never forget this, similar to what Patrick McHenry did when he tried to gavel the U.S. Congress out, House of Representatives out the other day. And he declared that Appalachian State University is, as the third cog of the university system wheel, is the only university that's actually on the hill. So we'll close our meeting today in honor of those that have lost their lives and have been injured and missing in action in Israel, and in honor of Ken Peacock, Chancellor Peacock, his family, and the ASU Nation. Thank you.